I was still awake at 5:30, so I dressed and went downstairs, sat by myself till the sun appeared and set fire to the morning sky. I hadn't slept a wink that night, my head ablaze with all the ways my life was going to alter, my legs concerned with staying firm and striving not to falter. My heartbeat doing 90 deep inside me like a motor, my lips reciting lines I very recently had wrote you. As I sat there on the sofa in my little sister's home, watching as the sun rose high above the town below, I thought of all the chants and choices that drew our lives together. Whether had we made them differently, my future wife and I would never have decided to go drinking on the evening that we chose, choose the same bar, stay for one last glass and then another, then just one more until close. Spend each instant of that morning growing closer as we dozed, and weighing pros against the cons of throwing caution to our clothes. I went for broke, you said go slow, and though opposed to it in theory, I agreed the change of speed, proposed to read till we felt weary. And so you slipped into a snooze as my boozy eyes grew bleary, and Parisian skies lit up with shades of blue through dark clouds clearing. The day I left I took your details, promised that I'd call, kissed you, said I'd miss you, then drove off into the sprawl of a city that receded into nothing much at all. Just the memory of a moment, just a number swiftly scrawled. Sat there reading the same novel we had read the night before. Separate worlds seemed less an issue, more the freedom to explore. To set down the life I'd worn a hole in, slip it in a drawer, pack my bag and wave my troubles off, lined up along the shore. For longer than I'd care to mention, stuff had not been great. Years of drinking fears under the table, lashing out at mates. I'm wondering why I couldn't find the one thing that might bring a little sense to all the noise. Give me a reason to begin, to amend for my shortcomings, to be better than I'd been. Then there you were, quite unexpectedly, a lighthouse in the mist. Then there I was, back home in London, wondering how to coexist in separate places on the basis of a fleeting weekend tryst, an unplanned meeting that, though brief, was too important to dismiss. And so I sat with pen and paper, hours later, had a list. All the reasons I should stay, despite the fact my life had stalled. Fear of change, the loss of leaving, trying to run before I crawl, weaving stories out of nothing, rushing headlong at a wall, believing someone that I barely know could care that much at all. Then every reason I should go, take a risk and start anew. The fact I'd met someone who seemed to see me, the fact that it was you. Decision made, I paid my boss a visit, told him I was off. He looked at me with wry derision, shook his head and scoffed. You'll be back, son, mark my words, these sort of things don't last. I laughed and thanked him for his sage advice for which I'd never asked. But as I walked home one more time, a route I knew by heart, I wondered if to move so fast, to hasten my depart, was all that wise a choice, given the nature of my past, the 15 years of numbered fears, the lingering shadow they still cast. Now half a decade down the line, on the morning of our wedding, I'm still sat there sipping tea, watching the world kick off its bedding, thinking how in a few hours I'll read the vows that I've been dreading, thread our lives together, shed the last of the old mask that I've been shedding, dance a slow dance, talk to friends about how grown up all their little kids are getting, not forgetting, take some photos in a photogenic setting. Thank my parents for their love, my mates for aiding and abetting in the foolish shit I did before my life began resetting. And as the day draws to a close, we'll cut the cake and say goodbye, pose for pictures with the people who mean most to us inside. I'll stand there like the Cheshire Cat, a smile twice my size, still uncertain why the person standing next to me arrived at the conclusion I was someone who was worthy of her time, somehow deserving of unnervingly extraordinary things, an unswerving dedication, the elation that it brings, the unrivaled affirmation of an interchange of